Panthers fans, we are almost 1 year into Dan Morgan as the GM of the Carolina Panthers, and I think it's time for us to do a full evaluation. How has he done to this point? So what we're going to do is break this up into two parts. Part number one, which you're listening to today, is going to be an evaluation of all the trades that have occurred. And honestly, there's been quite a few. So we're going to break down the trades, give my opinion on how I feel about the trades looking back on them, whether they were hits or misses, and then give a full evaluation. And then we're going to follow this up with a second part where we're going to analyze and grade the draft picks, including a few guys that were undrafted, to do a full evaluation and, give us our final thoughts on Dan Morgan as the GM as we head into another year for the Carolina Panthers. So we're going to start with the trades as we mentioned here. Going back in time, Brian Burns gets tagged. There's lots of rumors floating around. And eventually the Carolina Panthers decide to trade him away. And they make a deal with the New York Football Giants. And looking back on it, I just don't know, to be honest, how I feel about this, especially considering the Panthers' woes getting to the pass rusher. Now, there's always multiple ways to look at a situation. Number one, Panthers would have not had the money that they have available to spend without Brian Burns leaving. Again, the $30 million-ish that he was demanding ends up being spread around to multiple players, and we get to rebuild the offensive side of the ball. But to the flip side of that, it was difficult to see the Carolina Panthers pass rush, and I get it, some fans aren't Brian Burns fans, but needless to say, I think he is consistent and consistent enough, and we could have used anything and everything. So going back and looking at this trade, Carolina Panthers trade away Brian Burns. In return, the Panthers got a second-round pick, which was actually pick number 39, and a 2025, which is this year, fifth-round selection. They also did a fifth-round swap for the 24 draft. So the Giants got pick 166, and Carolina got pick 141. So you swap your fifths, and the Panthers really get 2 draft picks out of this. That's it. A second rounder and a fifth rounder for this year. When you go back, and this is why we analyze and talk about these things, we know what the Panthers could have gotten, all the reports, the 2 1s, and possibly a second. Sure, when you compare it against that, this is a terrible trade. And when you compare it against the season the Panthers had getting to the pass rusher, it was also a terrible trade. But for me, I kind of look at this right in the middle. Again, evaluating the full situation, thinking through what would have been if we kept Brian Burns and how we probably wouldn't have been able to finagle that money. It would have been a lot of money. I don't know if it would have been worth it. I do think he was a heck of a player, and I hate to see the Carolina Panthers continue to draft and develop players and then have it turn right around and ship them off. Like, you can't continue to draft these guys, have them perform well, and then make a decision that, oh, yep, now's the time. Let's go ahead and move them away. So, overall grade, I would give this a C, right in the middle. I'm not giving it an A or a B, and I don't think it's close enough to a D or an F, but absolutely not the greatest, again, in my opinion. All right, guess what? We move on to March 13th. There's another trade executed by the Carolina Panthers, and that is Diontae Johnson traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for Diontae Jackson. You also had a 6th-round pick that was sent to Pittsburgh and a 7th-round pick that was sent to Carolina. And I actually posted this on X a few days ago, and I asked folks, who won this trade? All things considered, because to be honest, Diontae Jackson did not have a great year. I know he played well at times, but overall, I saw a lot more clips of him getting burned than I saw of him playing good defense. So in exchange for this, there's a few ways to look at it. One, Panthers on our side, we don't even have either of the players that were involved in this trade. Diontae Johnson is gone, sitting out in no man's land, got claimed by the Ravens only for the purposes of recouping some potential draft compensation through a conditional pick. So we will see. 7th-round pick for the Panthers was traded, which we'll get to in a second, to the Seattle Seahawks and turned into Mike Jackson. And so for me, when you throw Mike Jackson into the mix, I think this elevates this trade because this trade doesn't happen without these pieces. But straight up, just looking at Diontae Jackson, and I'm not saying he played great, but at least he's still on the team. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say. They also got out of the 6th round pick Logan Lee, defensive end. So for me, I kind of sit closer to a D. Now, you could flip this again and say, well, we got Mike Jackson out of it. Yes, Mike Jackson's a free agent though. So I don't know. I'm a little bit torn. I do think, if you do include Mike Jackson as a part of this in your evaluation, maybe closer to a B. But for me, the intentions were there. So maybe I should take a step back because now I'm kind of veering off and grading solely on the final outcome. And to be honest, the effort was an A plus to a B. We needed a number one wide receiver. We didn't really have a lot of options. This was a situation where Diontae Jackson was going to be gone anyways. You're going to cut him. So you trade a player that you're going to cut and you get really what you think is going to be a good asset to your team. So now I'm talking myself into grading this as we look at it, of course, evaluating post, the final situation is terrible for both sides. But evaluating the trade as it occurred as a GM, I will give it a B plus. So I am going to switch going from a D to a B plus only because the effort made sense. This made sense for the Panthers. It just didn't work out. And I think that's something like no one could have really predicted. So now we're going to move into a bunch of trades in the draft. And to be honest, it may be a little bit harder to evaluate some of these, but we'll do it. But these picks get all shaken up. First one, of course, is trading back into the 1st round. We're sitting there all night thinking, oh, this is done. I'm going to go to bed. I actually did go to bed. I went to bed and woke up in the morning finding out the Panthers traded back into the 1st. They selected our star wide receiver. And I say star because I'm, semi-fan of South Carolina. Out of the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. That is Xavier Legette. So, felt like at the time, like this was the move. So what actually happened here is the Panthers again traded up. They wanted to get the 5th-year option, which was important to them. So they trade to Buffalo, 2nd-round pick, which was pick 33, one pick after us, and a 5th-round pick for 2024. The Carolina Panthers end up getting a 6th-round pick in exchange. So it was a 1 and a 6 in exchange for a 2 and a 5. Panthers, we know, got Xavier Legette, pick 32. Again, we're not here to do the analysis of the draft picks today. We'll do that in another episode. 6th-round pick ended up being Jaden Crumedy for the Panthers. Buffalo got Keon Coleman. I know how some people feel about this because I watched, I listened. There are some fans that are much higher on Keon Coleman, the upside. So I get it. And the other pick was Cedric Van Pran Granger, the center out of Georgia. That's a long name right there. Evaluating this, I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to. It's hard not to evaluate it thinking about the final outcome similar to the others. In the moment, I guess. I mean, you talk about a reach, but it's really you're moving up one. And considering, like, we really didn't give up. Like, we're flipping spots basically from 32 to 33. I'm not worried about the back end exchange of the 5th-rounder versus the 6th-rounder. Doesn't bother me. I think all things considered, I'd give this a C. Only because the Panthers, and I get it, the 5th-year option, you weigh that. Panthers likely could have sat there and still got their guy. I mean, it wasn't that big of a change, in my opinion. So I think they could have waited. But again, they wanted the 5th-year option, which is the reason they were doing that. So that is what happened for the Panthers. Then we move on with the Los Angeles Rams, and this is probably the best trade of the draft for the Carolina Panthers, in my opinion. The Carolina Panthers end up trading. The Carolina Panthers end up trading their 2nd-round pick, which was pick number 39. The Rams end up trading the Carolina Panthers a 2nd-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. So Dan Morgan recoups the 2nd that we lost in the Bryce Young trade. a second round pick in 2024, which is pick 52, and a fifth round pick, which is pick 155. And the Los Angeles Rams get pick number 39, which ended up being Braden Fisk. So they moved back a few spots, again, because originally they had pick 33 and 39, but they moved back a few spots, give away pick 39, and then get a haul, to be honest. And I think a lot of folks had hoped, and I called this out earlier in the season. I said, watch the Los Angeles Rams. You need to be tracking them and where they finish. It started off looking really good for us. Rams didn't start off so great. And you're like, oh, we're going to get like a top 10-ish pick. Sure enough, the Rams make the playoffs. They win. This pick gets further and further back, closer to 55-ish, 56 now. I don't. It's going to depend on the final breakdown. Either way, a late second round pick when we initially thought it was going to be early. So you pick 8th, then you have to wait all the way until late in the second round. So anyways, I think A+. It absolutely is an A+ all around. I wish the Panthers had decided to keep, it just doesn't make sense to me that they traded a few of these to move back up to get Jonathan Brooks, which we'll talk about in a second. But this trade by itself is an A+. Hands down, best trade of the draft. So then we move. You're like, okay, well, the Panthers are going to be on the clock at pick 52. Nope. Panthers take some of what they just got, as well as an additional pick, and trade it to the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts end up getting pick 52. They had pick 46, We trade for pick 46. They get pick 52, which is second rounder, pick 142, which is a fifth rounder, and pick 155, which is a fifth rounder as well. So out of this, and they ended up giving that one away, but they got Adonai Mitchell and Anthony Gold, 2 wide receivers out of this. Carolina Panthers get Jonathan Brooks. And I will say the thought was there. This is another one that's very hard to evaluate without looking at the final outcome. I think there was no doubt that Jonathan Brooks coming into this was the best running back in the class. It made sense. There were reasons why he was there. There were a lot of concerns about his health. And again, not a ton. We knew there was going to be delay. When the Panthers originally were like, oh, we'll see when training camp gets here. Like, everyone knew it was not going to be training camp. It was going to be further out. But there was still hope. And then just the final ending for Brooks stinks, man. And again, I'm not here to evaluate that today because it is a bummer. I will say, I do give this a C as well. I can't give it a B. I also don't think it's a failing grade. If you would have taken the final outcome of him not playing and then getting hurt again, I think you'd probably say closer to an F. But I want to look at it in the moment. And I do give it a C, maybe even closer to a D, to be honest. Only because I'm not a fan of moving up, 4, 5, 6 spots and giving away 3 draft picks. Just not the best situation, I think. All right, so we move on, and this is the final trade of the NFL draft. We trade our 3rd round pick, which was pick number 65, to the New York Jets in exchange for a 3rd round pick, number 72, and a 5th rounder, so pick 157. So for the Carolina Panthers, that turned into Trevin Wallace and Shaw Smith-Wade. For the New York Jets, that turned into Malachi Corley. And as we do get into this, I can tell you Malachi Corley did not hit a lick. And a lot of people were very high on him. I had to go back the other day just to look. So it's like, his name was up there for a lot of folks, including Steve Smith. And man, he has not panned out. Not a good year for him. Anyways, I look at this trade. Panthers moved back a few spots. Again, 7 spots. End up getting an additional pick. And again, the way I take my bias out of the bad, I also have to take it out of the good, because the good is I do see a lot of upside in Trevin and Shaw. But anyways, looking at this on paper, it's a no-brainer. This one is a B+ for me. No doubt about it. We then move on to the next trade, which was August 22nd, right before camp. Actually in camp, right? Mike Jackson for Michael Barrett. And when this happened, I was like, Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what to think, but I got to tell you, Mike Jackson is a number 2 cornerback in the NFL. Hands down, A-plus trade here, especially considering Michael Barrett not even being on an active roster right now, bouncing around, which is unfortunate. I was hoping he'd pan out here, but a lot of 7th-round picks, that's what's going to happen. But Mike Jackson doing the thing, man. So a solid job. A-plus. I really like this trade. And again, it's situations where Dan is finding guys that are likely going to be cut or off the roster and giving us a chance to get something in return. We then move on to the drama of October 29th, where the Carolina Panthers traded Diontae Johnson and a 6th-round pick in exchange for a 5th-round selection. At the time, I didn't care. I said, Panthers fans, there's a lot going on. It doesn't bother me. This is fine. Especially now when you see how this has happened for Diontae Johnson. I mean, just for the pure, just getting him off the team, it's got to be a B, right? At least a B. It's unfortunate that it didn't work out, but I mean, he's off the team. You don't have to worry about it. And you get a little bit higher pick. It's only a few picks higher in the 5th round because, again, it's the Ravens pick versus our 6th pick. And when you do the math, that's maybe 10 or 15 spots different. But we'll take it. Last trade of the season, right up close to right at the deadline. Carolina Panthers trade Jonathan Mingo and a 7th-round pick in exchange for a 4th-rounder. A plus plus. Another situation. You have a player that's not working out or he's not going to work out, and you're able to get a 4th-rounder for Jonathan Mingo, man, run that back every time. Absolutely A plus plus for the Carolina Panthers. And we've seen now, when I look at these, I'm not saying I want him to fail. Not at all. I hope that Jonathan Mingo is successful. But when we look at the outcome for the Panthers, hands down, one of the best things that could have happened. And now you get a 4th-rounder in exchange for it from the Dallas Cowboys. Should be pretty favorable. And you're stockpiling those draft picks, which is all the Carolina Panthers need to do. So anyways, folks, that is going to do it for the first half of the evaluation. I should have, as I did this, I should have wrote down the grade so I could get you a true average. Maybe I'll do that post-editing. Probably not, because my post-editing is clip it, post it, get it. But we'll move on, and you'll be able to watch the additional video. We will talk about all the draft picks and actually do an evaluation of them. So until next time, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.